Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to our weekday video posts. We started the daily, or now somewhat daily, video posts as a way to kind of shine the light on the Buddha's teachings and how they relate to or kind of speak to the global pandemic that's happening. I'd like to circle back today on a theme that is very central to the Buddha's teachings and also just made so clear, crystal clear by this pandemic. And that is that life is very uncertain. How it unfolds is uncertain as things change and dependent arising, many things we've gone over on previous posts. So it's uncertain how it unfolds. And we're vulnerable to that, but also life itself is vulnerable. And of course, the pandemic is showing that. Just one little, I don't know the biology behind it, but one little, maybe, I don't know, gene shifts, and all of a sudden a virus that was only in animals now shifts and jumps to include being in humans. That slightest little something in this virus, this life form that's so small, and now literally life becomes uncertain and vulnerable, and people die from it. And so, of course, as we've said, this is always the case. This level of vulnerability didn't start with a pandemic. It's simply kind of underscoring it, or shining the light on it. And so life itself is vulnerable. How many species, would be an interesting thing to research if you wanted to. How many species have, and this would just be what's been recorded, not what hasn't been recorded. How many species arose and passed away during the life of this planet so far? Not just individual beings, but whole species that arose and passed away. Vulnerable. And this was particularly brought to light for me in this past week when I received the news that a young man that I know, and actually in many ways am quite close to, suddenly died. A blood clot went to the brain, and they died quickly, suddenly, 36 years old. And so these things, whether it's the death of a friend, whether it's a global pandemic, just shine the light on the truth of the vulnerability of life itself. And in fact, the Buddha encouraged everyone. He said, one should reflect on one's own death each and every day. It may not be exactly literal, but that's, I think, pretty much literal. One should reflect on one's death each and every day. And of course, not to be morbid, right? And not that we can really prepare for the moment of death, but we can reflect on the inevitability of it, and this vulnerability in that we don't know, how or when death will occur, but that it will. And far from being like morbid or a downer, um, to the degree, it's kind of like these parallel curves, I think, to the degree that one understands the vulnerability of life is to the degree that one understands the preciousness of life. And then when one is really understanding the preciousness of life, um, what other response would come from a being with that kind of understanding other than kindness and compassion and care? It's not like in moments of defilements can't take over the mind and heart, and there may be moments of anger, etc., or not caring. But in general, when the preciousness of life is known, and again, known deeply through knowing the vulnerability of life, when that preciousness is known, there is a natural, doesn't have to be forced, it's not a practice, a natural caring and compassion for living beings. And we can see that perhaps in our own lives when we've lost someone or someone who's close to us has died, right? What place was your heart in after that? Yes, perhaps grief, but in terms of relating to other people, I imagine not so much anger, not so much, kind of petty things where we're bickering with other people or putting them down. Yeah, death is the great equalizer. It cuts through, they could say, it cuts through the BS and it reveals what is actually important. And one of the important things it reveals is how important kindness and compassion is. So I just want to circle back on that, both in terms of this teaching that the pandemic is offering us, but also just this fundamental truth, not just of the Buddha's teachings, like he didn't make it up. It's just the fundamental truth of life and the precariousness and the vulnerability of that. So let's go ahead and do some formal practice now and see where we might explore that right in our formal practice. Go ahead and take whatever posture you want to do the formal practice in. Standing, lying down, sitting in a chair, sitting on the floor. Bringing the attention to the body, both as a way to invite it to soften and relax, but also as a way to start to inhabit the body with the attention and as a way to come into the present moment. Any moment that you're feeling your body is a moment of present time awareness. You might feel the body where it's contacting the floor, the chair. You place the body is in contact with something else or itself. My legs are crossed, so there's places where the legs are touching. These are just great places to bring the attention to and start to notice the physical sensations of the body. So we can notice the physical sensations in the body at these contact places. We can also notice particular physical sensations in the body as we bring our attention to the breathing. Every in-breath and every out-breath has corresponding physical sensations in the body that occur with it. And you can be aware of those. You might feel them in your chest or your belly. You might feel the air kind of gliding through the nostrils down to the back of the throat. There's no special place to notice the breath, just that you notice it. That when the body is breathing in, the attention is connected to those sensations. And when the body is breathing out, the attention is connected to knowing those sensations. And now, as we're connected and conscious of the breathing body, we can start to reflect on this vulnerability. Notice how you're breathing, the body breathes out, and it's not very long at all before the body is asking for air. It's needing more oxygen. And luckily for us, the atmosphere is still here. The pulmonary system of the body is working. And the next in-breath is able to be drawn in. If anything were to inhibit that process, this particular life form would be in grave danger. Even as we sit here paying attention to our in and out breathing, we can connect with the vulnerability of this sentient life form. Each in-breath allows this life form to continue for another few moments. And that's actually how it is. Just a few moments at a time, staying alive, of course, until it doesn't. And now turning towards the preciousness of life, so the vulnerability aspect. But how precious is this atmosphere? How wonderful is it to drink that in with every in-breath, knowing the vulnerability that exists. See how that vulnerability leads to the feeling of preciousness. And notice how it might change your experience of the in-breath. when you wake up from being lost in thought, seeing that the breath is there, waiting for you, continuing to happen, even when we're not aware of it. And we can rejoice in that. It's still here. And we simply connect with it somatically as a way to continue with the meditation. Sometimes people wonder what the palms coming together and the bowing means. That many people do at the end of a formal practice period. And really, if you want to know exactly, you'd have to ask each person because it might vary a little bit. But it's something around thanking, appreciating both the teachings and the people who share the practice with this recognition of the importance of Sangha and practicing together and supporting one another. Something like that. So today, given our theme today would be a good day to let that person know, remember that person you've been wanting to thank for this or that, or wanted to let them know what you appreciated about them. Today would be a good day to do that, because the truth is we don't know if we'll have another day, that we can do it. The great, you could say, ignorance is thinking that there's more time. Oh, there'll be more time to do that. So check and see. Is there someone out there that you'd like to thank for something, or that you'd like to appreciate for something? And if so, make it a practice today that you actually go ahead and do that. And if, of course, it feels great. Okay, I wish you well today. I hope that your heart and mind has the resources, presence to meet whatever life brings you with kindness and compassion and equanimity. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.